This video is brought to you by Bitbox NES game cases, the best way to store, display, and show off your NES game collection. So be sure to check out stoneagegamer.com/bitbox for more information. How's it going, gamers? My name is John with Gamester81.com, and this episode I'll be doing a recent gaming pickup video. Now, I use the term recent loosely here because this is since my previous recent pickup video. It's been a while. So as you can see in front of me, I have a ton of games to go over. In fact, there's over 90 games on 25 different platforms. So I decided to kind of break it into two parts. I'll do the first part will be the retro gaming, and the second part will be the modern gaming for you guys to check out. Before I dive into this video and show you what I got and talk about each game, I want to say a big thank you to Rock Heart Clothing. While I was at Portland Retro Gaming Expo, they had a booth, and they hooked me up with this t-shirt here. It's pretty awesome. It's got the NES gun and everything like that. So I just want to thank them for the t-shirt. I've been on their site, and judging from what they had at the expo, they had some really cool clothing that's all gaming related. So I'll put a link to their site below. Show some support for sure. And cool thing, speaking of when I was out in the wild, these expos, every game I'm going to show you in these two videos are games that I picked up in the wild, meaning that I didn't get them on eBay or anything like that. The only exception would be the games I got on Steam for my PC. But other than that, all these other games I found out in the wild through my travels, through various conventions. So let's dive right in. Well, let's start with the NES because I know a lot of you guys, including myself, are huge fans of the Nintendo Entertainment System. We'll start off this first one on top here. I got this with Alpha Omega Sin in Pittsburgh about a month and a half ago. And this is TNC Surf. This is by LJN, which is, I'm not usually a fan of LJN games. They have some good games like Maximum Carnage is really good. I recommend that. But this game's decent. But most of their games, they have really good licenses, but they're really terrible games. This is an exception to the rule. This plays like California games. You guys have played that. Very similar. It's a very hard game, actually. There are two TNC Surf games. This one is a sequel to this, also for the NES. And this is based on a clothing line, TNC Surf, which I believe is still around, but it was huge in the 80s. So I paid $8 for that. Not too bad of a deal. This one I got at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. This is California Raisins, The Grape Escape. This is a game what they call a repo cart or a reproduction cartridge. Never officially came out. This is by Capcom. The game is complete. It's a side-scrolling game. Graphics are great. Music's good. I'm not quite sure. Maybe licenses fell through or whatever, but this is based on the California Raisins commercials and one of the largest, best successful commercial campaigns ever for a company. Remember the cartoons, or they had a cartoon actually. Do you remember the commercials and stuff? But actually a decent game. Really well done reproduction card. It's got the label and everything. Really check it out. If you guys get a chance, it is available on ROM. Definitely encourage you guys to check it out. This is Archon. I think that's how you pronounce it. I paid $5 for this. This game isn't rare by all means, but it plays, part of it's like a chess kind of match, like it's a board game, and then part of it's like a one-on-one battle. It's a very unique gameplay. It's by Activision. Next one is Swamp Thing. This is more of uncommon. It's not rare. It's an uncommon title. I picked this up in Missouri. I had a shop there. It's by THQ. It's a side-scrolling game. It's a very dark game in the sense the graphics are very dark and music's not that great, but overall it's a pretty decent game. Next one is Monsters in My Pocket. I paid $13 for this. It's not too bad of a game. It is by Konami. Again, it's a side-scrolling game. It reminds me of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is also by Konami. Just the graphic style of it. It's based on a cartoon series, which is also based on a toy line, Monsters in My Pocket, kind of a rip-off of Turtles. So if you enjoyed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, this isn't a beat-em-up per se, but it is cool. The graphics are good, music's good, and the gameplay is pretty decent. The next game is Felix the Cat. I got this at a place called Frankensons in Southern California. It's a huge indoor swap meet, so to speak, they have every weekend. Really cool place. I paid $30 for this. It's a pretty uncommon game. It's Felix the Cat. I believe it's by Hudson Soft, and indeed it is. Hudson Soft made games like Adventure Island, Bonk's Adventure, stuff like that. Graphics are really good. It is a side-scrolling platforming game, and Felix has some really interesting weapons and power-ups in this game. But if you like games like Super Mario Brothers and side-scrolling games, I think you'd really enjoy Felix the Cat. Definitely check it out. It's a really fun game. Next game I got complete in box is Tubin. And I believe I got this in Seattle when I was there, up in that area. This is by Tengen. which Tengen, if you guys didn't know, is Atari. And Tengen is a word for a Japanese board game, and so is Atari. So Atari means go, and Tengen means something else. So it's interesting that Atari was making games for the NES, but Tubin itself is based on a classic arcade game, also named Tubin. You're in this guy with like an inner tube, and you're supposed to control. There's all these different obstacles and stuff like that. Pretty fun game. Replay value is not that great. Next game is Tombs and Treasures. I got this way back at MagFest, and I forgot to mention it in my other recent pickup video. But what this game is basically, it's an RPG. It plays like when you're in the battle mode, you're battling. It's kind of like Phantasy Star. It's a first-person perspective. It comes with a nice map. It's a pretty good, decent box shape. It comes complete, everything like that. Not a bad game. I forget how much I paid for it. I think like 15 bucks. Next game, I paid 12 bucks for this. I also got with Alpha Megasin in Pittsburgh. This is The Simpsons, Bart versus Space Mutants. I had this game loose, didn't have it complete in box. I love The Simpsons. I know a lot of people complain about the series deteriorating over the years, and most recently saying that it's funny, but I still love the series. I think it's very up-to-date, modern, all that. This is probably one of the better Simpsons games you'll find. It's a hard game as hell. It's been ported to a lot of different platforms, Genesis, Game Gear, etc. But this is complete in box. Paid 12 bucks for it. Pretty fun game. Last game I picked up for the NES is called Baseball Stars. It's by SNK, who is mostly known for making the Neo Geo, but Baseball Stars is a great game, one of my favorite baseball games on the NES, and we all know there's a ton of them out there. But this is one of the first like sports titles I remember playing where you actually can customize your own team, create a player. Really, really fun game. There is a Baseball Stars 2. Don't be fooled. Check out the first one. Baseball Stars made it to the Neo Geo as well. Completely different game, though. This is the one to check out. It's complete in box. Next, we're going to move on to the Super Nintendo. This first card I'm going to show you, this is Super Mario World Return to Dinosaur Land. You're thinking, there was never a game, Super Mario World Return to Dinosaur Land, John. What are you talking about? Well, this is actually another reproduction card. Game was never released. It's a fan hack. Guy actually took Super Mario World and added new worlds, new stages, new enemies. The website is lostclassiccvgs.com. I'll put a link below. Really cool website. They got a lot of cool reproduction cards. Really high quality, and it plays really well. This game is super, super hard, though, because there's certain parts that's a little different. You have to cut keys in certain stages to move on, and these keys are really, really hard to find. So it does take some time. It can get very frustrating, but if you like the first Super Mario World like I do, this is definitely one to check out. I'm sure there's a ROM available for it somewhere. Next Super Nintendo title is The Great Circus Mystery, starring Mickey and Minnie. This is by Capcom. I love the marriage between Capcom and Disney. They had some great games for the NES, as we all know. This is a good game. If you like Castle's Illusions, it's by a different developer and stuff, of course, but if you like the classic Genesis games, the Mickey Mouse games, this is one to check out. It plays very similar. You can play co-op in this. You can play as Mickey and Minnie at the same time. Really fun graphics, a really fun Capcom game. It's a side-scrolling game. The next one is Rap Jam. I got this at Frankenstein's as well. Got this with Retro Liberty. And I remember Aaron mentioning from Retro Liberty to pick this up. I paid like a couple bucks for it. I think it was pretty cheap. Imagine NBA Jam. It's a 1-on-1 though. It's not 2-on-2. But then they take rap stars back in the 90s. So you got Queen Latifah. You have Coolio, LL Cool J. Those are all playable characters in this game. Gameplay's terrible, but kind of a unique game. $2, can't go wrong. I picked up the Game Chasers DVD, and as part of the Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign they had where you a certain tier where if you put like $30 down, you get the DVD plus a random game. That random game for me was We're Back, a dinosaur story for the Super Nintendo. I played this. Honestly, not a very good game. It's a side-scrolling platforming game for the Super Nintendo. There's a ton of them. Graphics are decent. You play as a dinosaur, and it's kind of a weird. It looks like it's based on like a cartoon from the time. I don't remember hearing about the dinosaur story cartoon per se, but just graphically, it looks like it's based on a cartoon. Another Super Nintendo game I picked up is Stunt Race. This has got the FX chip, just like Star Fox. Real fun racing game for Super Nintendo. If you have Super Nintendo, I highly recommend this game. It's a blast. Next game I got is Space Invaders. I paid $10 for this, complete unopened, based on the classic Space Invaders game, but it's for the Super Nintendo. You don't see these unopened Super Nintendo games come across very often, let alone $10. Not a bad deal. Next system we move on to is the Game Boy. First off, a couple bucks, got Golf. I can't believe I didn't have this game already. I love Golf for the NES. If you like Golf for the NES, definitely check out Golf for the Game Boy. It's classic, one of the very early games for the system. Next is Yoda Stories. Paid $3 for this at Bookman's. This best way to explain this game is like Zelda meets Star Wars. It's an adventure game. It's top-down, kind of like Zelda. That's the best way I can explain. It's for the Game Boy Color, so you got some color to it as well. Kind of a random Star Wars game, but for $3, really can't go wrong. Next game I got for the Game Boy is this is Itchy and Scratchy Miniature Golf Madness. Paid $4 for this at Bookman's. I didn't know what to expect. I like Simpsons games. I know I mentioned before Bart versus Space Mutants. This is a miniature golf game, but it's still different. It's a platforming game. You play as Itchy. You play as a cat. I think that's Itchy. I'm not sure if it's Scratchy or Itchy. But anyway, you play as a cat, and you have this golf club and basically your putter, and you have this ball you hit as a weapon, and you get to the stage, and you're supposed to hit the ball in the hole. You get certain strokes. So it's kind of like a miniature game / action game. It's very random, actually. Next one is a must-own for the Game Boy. This is Gargoyle's Quest, and this is by Capcom. This is kind of a spin-off of Ghosts and Goblins, that series, that franchise. And you play as this gargoyle. This is like an RPG. There's parts of RPG elements to like a platforming game. Super fun. And there's been sequels for it, for the NES and even Super Nintendo, but this is one that started it all. Really fun graphics, really great music, and the gameplay is stellar. So this is a must-own Gargoyle's Quest. Moving on to the Genesis. I got this game right here for $8 at Bookman's. This is called Pirates Dark Water. I never heard of this game before. It's a platforming game. Apparently, this game came out for the Super Nintendo as well. This is by Sunsoft, which makes some great games back in the day, really good graphics. And it's by Iguana Entertainment, who most famously known for the NBA Jam series. This plays as a platforming game. The one for the Super Nintendo, even though it has the same title, is actually a beat 'em up, a lot better game. But this is based on a cartoon series by the same name, Pirates of Dark Water, and it's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. I never really watched it back in the day, but this is still a fun game. $8, not a bad game to pick up. Another one is X-Men 2, awesome game. I paid $6 for this. You play as Wolverine, you can play as Cyclops, you can play as Beast. Really great graphics, really great platforming game. Definitely recommend. This is part of the greatest hit, so they sold quite a bit of these. So it's not uncommon by all means. I also picked up the Menacer at PAX, which if you guys aren't familiar with the Menacer, let me pick it up here. It's like the Genesis answer to the Super Scope 6. I paid $25 for it. Came with this game, this box. It's a cardboard box. It has 6-in-1 mini games, just like the Super Scope 6 did. It also has a sensor bar here. I'll probably end up doing a review over that. And at Bookman's for $6, I picked up Terminator 2, T2, the arcade game. This is for the Menacer. It's a light shooting game. Notice it's cardboard. You don't see many cardboard Genesis games. Usually they come in a clamshell. Later on they had cardboard, but didn't have like the open flap like this does. And this is unique because this was packed in with a Menacer, so there's a certain bundle. So this specific one was for the Menacer package. Even shows the Menacer logo here. There are T2, the arcade games available that do come in clamshell. They're a lot more common. Paid $6 for it. A really fun game. Also for the PlayStation 1 now, I picked up Asteroids, which is basically a remake. I got this at Bookman's for $6. It's a remake of the classic arcade game Asteroids. Updated graphics, music's great. Jet Moto paid, $4 for this. Really fun PlayStation 1 game. I can't believe I didn't own this before. It's basically like, wave race, and then there's in the snow, and it's a great racing game. I'm a big fan of Cool Spot for the Genesis. This is a follow-up. Spot Goes to Hollywood for the PS1. This is by Virgin Interactive. It's a weird isometric kind of view, but a really fun game. If you like Cool Spot, this is definitely one to check out. And Jupiter Strike. This is an early game for the PS1, a long box. This is a shooting game, and it's a lot of fun. It's like a third-person kind of behind the ship, and graphics are great, and it's a very early game it shows you kind of what the PS1 could do. So I love these long box early PlayStation 1 games. In Seattle, I was up there. They had a whole bunch of Jaguar homebrew games for the Jag CD. I picked them up. I think I got them pretty cheap. I forget what I paid for them, to be honest with you. But you got Soul Star, again, another shooting star game, very similar to Jupiter Strike for the Jaguar. I think this is a homebrew. Also picked up, this is one, it's got Atomic, and it's kind of a puzzle game for the Jag CD. And this is kind of a multi-pack with a whole bunch of random games, Highlander, Battle Morph, some samples, and all these games are not very good, to be honest with you, but it's cool to have. You don't see Jaguar or CD games many places you go. Moving on to Speaking of Jaguar, I did pick up a couple Jaguar cartridges. I picked up Missile Command 3D, really fun Missile Command game. I love these. They have Defender 3D. They have other like old school Atari classics 3D versions of them, and this is really fun. And Canyon Fodder, kind of a weird game. I haven't played it much, to be honest with you. Again, you don't find Jaguar games out in the wild very often, but it's cool when you do. And I think I paid about $5 a pop for each of these, so it wasn't too bad of a deal. Moving on to classic Xbox games, I picked up Star Wars Jedi Outcast. This is Jedi Knight 2. I believe this is one of the first Star Wars games for the Xbox. I know they had the Obi-Wan Kenobi game. I paid $15 for this at Bookman's. This is kind of like a third person behind the person perspective. It plays very similar to The Force Unleashed. I guess it's kind of the best way to explain it. Really fun game for Star Wars. Obviously a big fan. Another shooter that's a great Star Wars game is Star Wars Starfighter Special Edition, based on Episode 1 during that time frame. Even though I'm a huge fan of that particular movie, this is a really fun game. It's a really good shooter. If you're like Rogue Squadron, if you're a fan of that series, this is definitely one to scope out. This is a weird one. This is an odd one, no pun intended. This is Oddworld Munch's Odyssey. I paid $10 for this. And I got this at a place called Vintage Stock in Missouri in the Midwest. I've never heard of this game before, to be honest with you. This is only on the Xbox. You basically control a bunch of different random people that follow you. And I haven't played too much of it. It's kind of an interesting gameplay. You guys will have to check it out. Conquers Live and Reloaded. This is actually an uncommon game for the Xbox. I actually hunted this one out specifically. I paid $40 for it, which is probably about what it's worth. So it is an uncommon game for the Xbox. But it's a remake of the classic Conquers for the N64. Updated graphics, audio, obviously. A really fun game by Raresoft, or Rare, rather. And definitely want to check out for the Xbox. If you're a fan of the original one, definitely check it out. Star Wars Republic Commando. This is like Star Wars meets, like Tom Clancy, Rainbow Six. Like if you've played those games before where you control different people, right? That's kind of like how this game plays. It's a first-person perspective, and you play as these Rebel Commandos. A really fun Star Wars game. I also got this LucasArts experience, random samples of different Star Wars games, including Armed and Dangerous, Wrath and Lee, Star Wars Rebel Commando, Night of the Old Republic, different samples of that. And that is all the original Xbox games I picked up. A 3DO game. I got this at PAX. This is Road Track. This is with long box. $22. I got this at Pink Gorilla. This is for 3DO, a really fun racing game. This is the first Need for Speed, rather. It's Need for Speed, not Road Track, but Road Track presents Need for Speed, the very first Need for Speed. Really fun game. Love the 3DO. Robotica. This is $10. I got this at Bookman's for the Saturn. This is a first-person shooter, very early first-person shooter. It's you against a whole bunch of robots. It kind of reminds me of like Aliens theme. It's very dark, sci-fi. It takes place in the 29th century. Really fun first-person shooters for the Saturn. For the PS2, I picked up some games. This is Parappa the Rapper 2. I love the Parappa the Rapper 1. Paid $12 for this. I got this in Seattle when I was up there, one of the retro gaming stores. It's a continuation from the original Parappa the Rapper. It's a tongue twister. It's a tongue twister to say, but this is like one of the very first games, or the original one was anyway, like a music games where you hit buttons at certain points of the notes. Kind of came out before, Guitar Hero and all those franchises hit the market. Activision Anthology. This is over 45 classic Intellivision games. I got this paid $6 for at Bookman. Some games include Boxing, Checker, Dolphin, Dragster. Now the graphics are old school. And for the Atari 2600, rather, I said Intellivision earlier, it's for the Atari 2600, but classic Activision is kind of where it started all. I love these classic games. Good one to pick up, $6 for 45 games in one. Really can't beat that. Going on to GameCube, we have Space Raiders. This is by the creators of Space Invaders. It's by Mastiff, and it's only for the GameCube. I had never heard of this before. It's by Tato. I never heard of this before, but it's actually a really fun game. It plays like Space Invaders, but it's in like a really cool 3D landscape, and then it's like you have these guns and there's different aliens. It's a very similar gameplay, but in like a modern day. Very, very cool. Paid $6 for it, so definitely recommend that out. Check that out for the GameCube. Also, speaking of classic games remade, this is Defender for the GameCube. Again, it plays completely different than the original Defender arcades by Midway, but it's done in like behind the scene perspective. And the last GameCube game I got was this is Super Mario Sunshine. I'd wanted this for a while. I paid $25, which was a pretty decent deal for it. This is a great Mario game. I don't know what else to say. If you haven't played Super Mario Sunshine, I know a lot of people may not care for it. I actually like it. So if you like Super Mario 64 and games like that, Mario Galaxy, this is definitely one to check out. Moving along, some other games I picked up. Now this is going back even further for the retro consoles. This is for the Atari 2600. Great game. There are a lot of great games. You can pick a lot of them up really, really cheap. This is Super Breakout. Paid $2 for this. It uses a paddle controller, which is really cool, really unique. While I was at Portland Retro Gaming Expo earlier this year, I picked up, this is Space Rocks. And this is a Atari Age game. It's a homebrew. And it's like asteroids, but it's done really, really well. Updated graphics, sound, everything like that. Great game. If you're a big fan of asteroids like I am, it's definitely a game to check out. You can get on asteroids, but they launched it at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Also at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, I picked up, this is Mind Master, Escape from the Mind Master, rather. This is for the Starpath Supercharger. If you guys don't know what the system is, basically it is, it was an attachment for the Atari 2600 that you put into the cartridge slot, and it basically boosts up the RAM and storage and memory and all that for the Atari 2600. It makes it on steroids, more or less. These are cassette tapes, and it's done through a tape recorder, more or less. And this is like a first-person maze game on the Atari 2600. So the graphics are enhanced, the sound's enhanced because it's done through a tape cassette. Really, really cool attachment. And this is a really fun game. So definitely check that out. Another game I got recently, I've been huge into collecting ColecoVision. And I want to thank good friend Stu for hooking me up with this game. This is a really hard to find game for the ColecoVision. This is Pac-Man Collection. This is by Optcode. Now what's unique about this particular game is it came out in 2007. And Eduardo is the programmer for this game, who's with Optcode. And this is Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man on the ColecoVision, but it's done, it's like mega cart. So I think it's 128 kilobytes or 128K of memory. And it's got a really cool like yellow cart too. It's really well done. It's arcade quality port on the ColecoVision. It just shows you how powerful the ColecoVision system can actually be. If you're a big fan of Pac-Man like I am, this is definitely a game to check out. Another item I picked up recently, a retro item, is this right here. This is a Sega Saturn arcade stick. I paid $20 for it. It's unopened, which is cool. How often do you see one of these unopened? But great for fighting games. There weren't many fighters on the Saturn, but great for fighting games nonetheless. And you got like Virtua Fighter and Virtua Fighter 2 are some examples of some fighting games that this would be good for. And it's a pretty cool item to have. Definitely an unopened for $20. I thought was a pretty decent deal. Some other retro games I got, guys, I want to point out is this is for the CDI. Yeah, a CDI. I picked up some games for the CDI. I got Pinball. This is a pinball interactive game for the CDI. It comes with a couple tables. And graphically, it's not that great, but it's a pinball game. I figured I'd pick it up. Got it cheap. And how often do you see CDI games in the wild? So I wanted to get that. Another one is Alien Gate. This is a shooter, top-down shooter. You know, it's kind of like 1942, for example, but it's done in like an alien space theme, you know. Really fun for the CDI. I really enjoyed this game a lot. Another one is for the Action Max, and this is unopened. I got this in Seattle. Action Max, for you that don't know, I did a review on it a long time ago. It's a VHS tape by a company called Worlds of Wonder, I believe is the name of the company that made it. But basically, it's a light gun game, and it takes live action shots through the VHS, and it doesn't place terrible. It is Worlds of Wonder, as it says in the back. I was right. But game's not that great. But how often do you see an unopened Action Max title? And someone who actually owns an Action Max like myself, who was able to play it. Probably keep it unopened though, to be honest with you. I also want to say another big thank you to Lewis, who has a cool booth at Frankensons, which I mentioned before is kind of indoor swap meet in Southern California, in the city of Industry, more specifically. Super nice guy. He's a fan of my show and hooked me up with some cool stuff. So he's the same vendor I actually bought this Game & Watch, Super Mario Brothers Game & Watch from. He gave me a great deal on that. But he hooked me up with this really cool like Super Mario Brothers bag. And in this bag comes with some cool Japanese like strategy guides. So it looks like this is Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2. You got Yoshi's Island for the DS in Japanese, and Mario Party DS, which is really cool. Let's see what else he hooked me up with. He hooked me up with a Family Basic. This is looks like it's a backup system for the Famicom. Pretty cool. It's just basic programming for the Famicom. You can actually turn the Famicom into kind of more or less a computer, home computer, hence the family computer, Famicom, or Famicom. And he hooked me up with 2 Game Boys, original Game Boys. Ones that variations I did not own before. He had clear one, and as well as this is Frogger game came with it, but got a red one as well. Super cool. So Lewis, I really appreciate that. That's awesome view. Very cool. So if you're in Frankenstein's and you see Lewis, be sure to say hi to him and show some support. He's got some really cool stuff at his booth. That's it. Pretty much what I picked up for retro games. I appreciate you guys watching. My next part 2 will be over modern games. I'll put a link below up top. And I appreciate you guys watching. Please, if you guys want to stay in contact, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, as well as my website, Gamester81.com. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.